In Psalm 103, we find, as a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him. For he knows how we are formed. He remembers that we are dust. In this psalm, we're reminded of God's greatness, our smallness, and his kindness towards us. What a great gift it is to know God's loving care, even though we are dust. Welcome to another episode of Commending and Contending. Joining me today is Bethany. G'day, Bethany.
Hey Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Listen, where has God planted you?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I'm up on the New South Wales Central Coast. I would usually say sunny, but not so sunny this past week.
Oh,
Part of the church family at EV Church, where my husband is in pastoral ministry. And life is full. We have four kids who keep us busy with swimming and soccer and music, you name it. And yeah, at church, I love supporting and encouraging women into leadership roles, especially in our growth groups. And alongside that, I wear a few work hats. So I work with Virtual Church Assist, an organization of administrative assistants who support churches so ministries can grow and flourish. And through that role, I provide administrative support to the Gospel Coalition Australia. So I do a lot of working behind the scenes with our editor and our authors, doing some work in operations and organizing events, which I think is what brings me here today.
absolutely. I'm so glad you could join me here for this episode. And in a moment, I do want to talk to you more about a workshop online coming up that regular subscribers to our email would already know about. But I just want to make sure everyone, it's going to be so good. I want to make sure everybody hears about it. But first, how has God been encouraging you recently?
Do you know, so many ways, Jonathan. And one particular story I'd love to share is that I had a woman join my growth group at the start of last year, and I'd never met her before. So we've now known each other about 18 months. And she had just become a Christian. She'd been seeking spiritual things a lot of her life. She'd been seeking truth. She just knew there was more than what she could see, and she'd tried all different sorts of things to try and find what that was. And yeah, she came along and did the life series at our church, and um, she said she kind of came along initially just thinking like, well, I've looked at a bunch of other stuff. I better look at this. She didn't think that there would be much that Christianity had to offer, but she thought, I need to at least have looked. I need to look so I can discount it. But God has just, yeah, been so kind to her. And um, she then, after doing the life course, did another follow-on series that we have at our church called More to Life, which she loved, and then became a Christian, joined our growth group. And look, it's just been absolutely fantastic to get to know her and become her friend, but also to see um, just her real wrestle, the ups and downs of reading God's word, trying to understand it, trying to know who He is, and also seeing her make some absolutely massive changes in her life as a result of the gospel. So, not only a transformed heart and a transformed mind, but a transformed life. And she's actually stepping into a ministry role now. And it's just so fantastic to see God change someone so profoundly and to see someone just have so much joy in the gospel and in Jesus and want to just pursue knowing him and being known by him. Getting to watch that unfold in a person's life is such a privilege. And that's just, we have one story of God working so profoundly in one life that I've been
Yeah.
blessed to see. Yeah.
What a marvelous gift from God that we
Yeah.
get to stand on the sidelines and see him transform people on that slow path of discipleship.
Yeah, it's been a real privilege in so many ways in this lady's journey. And just to yeah, to sit in awe at God's work in her life.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, a real gift, a real gift. Now you were mentioning you're part of Virtual Church Assist, and one of the roles you have is that support and background work for the Gospel Coalition Australia, which I believe last year included your contribution to our online workshop about preaching preparation. I certainly got along to those sessions, but I don't know that all our listeners necessarily signed up. I guess mostly it was aimed at people who were preaching, so they were probably the people that signed up. But organizing it meant that you were there for the sessions. How did it go? What was it like?
Yeah, look, it was great. In the end, we had over 100 people registered to attend over the 4 weeks, which was way far more than we were anticipating. Which, yeah, again, a great kindness of God. And those people came from all over the country. So we had people from, I think, almost every state and territory in Australia. And how great is it that we can come together across such vast differences to learn from each other and to become better equipped to love and serve the Lord where we are. But yeah, you're right. We mostly had registrations from people in some sort of ministry capacity, be that paid or unpaid, but people who were preaching regularly or semi-regularly. So we had a lot of pastors, a lot of lay preachers, a lot of Bible college students, drew from that kind of crowd. And we had 4 online sessions across 4 Monday nights in August last year. And we heard from some of the Gospel Coalition Council members. We heard from Richard Chin, Rory Shiner, Gary Miller, and Murray Capel. And they each spoke through their approach to preaching and each took on a different type of preaching. So um, we looked at preaching through the Old Testament. We looked at preaching from the heart with Murray Capel. We looked at preaching to engage our culture with Rory Shiner, and Richard Chin also talked about how we preach to engage the non-believer. So it was great to see, I guess, some of what happens behind the scenes for the preacher. Not, I mean, something I see a little being married to someone who preaches occasionally. I get a little glimpse into what that process looks like, but I don't get the full picture. And so for me, as someone who's not a preacher, I just found it fascinating seeing the process and seeing the differences in the processes between these four people as well. So not one cut and dry way to handle preparing to give a talk. Um, but look, I think they were wonderful, and we had really positive feedback. Um, and lots of people saying, "Can we do something again this year?" So that's where we are, and here we are to go for round 2.
But we are mixing it up this time, so
We
it's
are.
it's this is a much broader topic, and it's just one presenter. So tell us about what the plan is for this year's online workshop.
Yeah, definitely. So look, this year we are doing something quite different. We're going to be running 4 online workshops with Rory Shiner from Providence over in Perth, and he's going to be looking at C.S. Lewis, his life, legacy, and literature.
Wow. Okay. So this is clearly something that Rory's got across. He's done the background work. I feel like a lot of us kind of have heard of C.S. Lewis, maybe even read some. Have you had a chance to read any yourself, Bethany?
Yeah, look, I have. I must admit, I am a huge C.S. Lewis fan. So when this topic was suggested, I was on board before anyone else had even agreed to it. And look, and Rory actually earlier this year led a study tour throughout
Wow.
England,
Yeah.
focusing on C.S. Lewis and his life. So visited the Kilns where he grew up, Oxford and Cambridge where he spent a lot of his time. So he's going to be bringing all of that very recent first-hand insight into his presentations. And for me, look, I'm a pretty classic Narnia girl. Like I love the Chronicles of Narnia. I won't tell you all my children's names, but there may be some influence from there in one of them. Um, and my absolute favorite book is The Last Battle. I just love that scene where the children are just running and they're not tiring and they're going farther up, farther in, and they're filled with joy because they're running towards their king. And there's a line that where Lucy says, like, "Oh, I have come home. This is my real country." And I don't know, it almost when you're immersed in the Narnia world, that just that little moment always gives me chills because it's just such a picture in this fictitious world of what we're all longing for. Like we're all longing to just run without ever tiring towards our king. And I think Lewis is such a gifted writer and thinker, and him being able to pull these real longings that we have and express them in this make-believe world is, I find, really moving. Um, and I think lots of people throughout the 20th and 21st century have as well. Even as we speak, I have some sick kids at home, and I can just hear that what they're listening to on the TV, and I'm pretty sure they've put on the film Prince Caspian. So, like, I think it's a he's a man that maybe he's not hugely influential for every person, but I think as a culture, he has been a big culture shaper throughout the 20th century, and I think there is a lot that we can learn from him and his writings. What about you, Jonathan? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, yeah, I do actually. And while I know a lot of people do love the Narnia stories, I actually really enjoyed discovering the space trilogy.
Okay.
So Lewis has
Yeah.
these three books that are kind of science fiction-y, which for me as a teenager and being into science fiction was a wonderful discovery. And again, has these kind of rich theological insights woven into a narrative that they kind of hit different because they're embedded into story and you're carried along by the story and you think differently about key biblical themes because of the way that he manages to tell these stories. But yeah, Out of the Silent Planet and Voyage to Venus and That Hideous Strait, these three science fiction novels were really significant in the ways that I kind of engaged with some of the ideas that Lewis brings to us. Now, he's not just a story writer, though, although he's kind of
Mm.
often famous, and perhaps we maybe encounter him in our younger years through these stories. He's also famous as an apologist. And his book, Mere Christianity, I believe, started out as some radio lectures that then got published as a book. But there is a wealth of biblical reflection and apologetic work as well. It sounds to me like Rory's going to engage across these different areas. Is that right?
Yeah, he is. So I can give you a breakdown of what we'll be looking at, just a broad
Yeah,
breakdown if
that'd
you
be
like.
helpful.
Yeah, so the first week we're basically going to have an introduction to Lewis, Lewis the man. We're going to learn about his life, and we're also going to look a little bit about his legacy. So why is it worth looking at this man? What has come from him and filtered down to us today? So that's the focus of the first session. And the second session is just what you were saying. We're looking at Lewis the apologist. So looking at him as a theologian who wants to speak Christian truth into his culture. And even though our culture has shifted and changed a lot since his time, a lot of what he shares is still so prescient. So we'll be looking at that, what he was saying, what it was in response to in his time, and again, what that means for us today. The third week, of course, we have to look at Lewis the Narnian. So we're looking at him and his use of myth, his use of fiction, um, things that you and I both love. And the fourth week, we're looking at Lewis as the prophet, which I'm really, really interested in. So, what things did he speak about in his time, and what what have we, someone a bit more distant from Lewis, seen in response to some of the concerns that he had about his culture? Um, yeah, and that enduring, I guess, insight that he had into the human condition. So that's what we'll be looking at.
And I believe Lewis had a rule where you should read two old books for every one new book. And in a way, he has become our old book.
He
He's one of
has.
those people who, by virtue of living in a different time and a different place, can help us get over that presentism where we're overly enamored by things right now. So looking back at his life would be, yeah, it's enormously helpful. Certainly, my intention is to sign up. Sounds like you're keen as well.
Yeah, I'll
If
be there.
if people are listening to this now and they think, "Oh, gee, this sounds good," um, uh, like, how do we find out about this thing? I think it was in the email that goes out. How do people subscribe to the TGCA email that goes out?
Yeah, look, great question. If you head to our website, au.thegospelcoalition.org, from there you can sign up to receive our regular newsletters. They go out every Monday. They give you a quick overview of some recent articles that have been on our website, recent podcasts, any events that are coming up. That would be the first place to go. On our homepage, you will also see a banner that says C.S. Lewis workshops. And if you click through to that, you will find all the information, how we host them, how you can register, who they're for, which is really anyone. Unlike last year, we're not really aiming this at anyone with any kind of particular background, but anyone with an interest in Lewis, apologetics, theology, or literature, and anyone who wants to dig deeper into the work of this great man. Yeah, we'd love to have you join us.
It's also a really nice way to join in with people from all over the country and realize that, yeah, commending and contending for the gospel all over Australia is a shared thing that we do in all sorts of regional towns, tiny nowhere places, and also the big metropolitan cities. Also, though, I'm thinking about my listeners here, and I'd love to give them a discount that just if they've tuned in and listened to this episode and discovered that this resource is out there, can we give them a discount?
I think we probably can, Jonathan. I think we can. No,
Great.
we we would love to. Look, we want as many people to come along as possible. And to give you the information, we are it is $90 at full price for all 4 sessions. If you can't commit to coming 4 weeks in a row, we do offer $30 per session as well, and they are recorded, so you can always have access to them if you can't make the actual dates. And look, if you're listening and you'd love to join us, if you use the code COMMEND10, so that's COMMEND 1010 at the checkout, you'll receive a 10% discount, just as a small thank you for listening to us today and for making the decision to come along and join us. And will you be there, Jonathan?
I definitely will be there, but I'd love listeners to use that Commend 10 code at checkout and get their 10% discount. Join in on what I think will be a very good follow-up workshop to our first one last year. I reckon there's scope for us to do more of these in coming years. Uh, and if people who are listening have thoughts on that, why don't you reach out to us at Gospel Coalition Australia? We'd love to hear any suggestions you have about the sort of thing that you reckon would make for a good workshop online topic.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, you can definitely reach out to us. You can even email me. My email address is admin@thegospelcoalition.org.au, and we would love to hear from you.
And how about we give C.S. Lewis the final word? One of
Yeah,
his
great.
famous quotes: Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. Thanks for joining me today, Bethany. This has been a really good chat.
Thanks, Jonathan. I've loved it.